Hello, everybody, and welcome to Decoding the WSL, the podcast dedicated to the stats and facts in the WSL. We're here today to look ahead to game week 2. We've had the first 6 games of the season. The next 6 are coming thick and fast, starting this Friday night. And we've got a great panel to preview the games coming up. Alongside myself, Sam Biccarino, your host, we have one of our regulars. It's Izzy Duddy. Izzy, how are we doing?
I'm good, thank you, Sam. How are you?
Yeah, very good, thank you. And then we also have the still, as I introduced you into the last episode, lineal champion of Know Your Stats, Laura Howard. Laura, how are we feeling?
Yeah, good, thank you.
Looking forward to the weekend ahead, I'm sure. Let's dive straight into it. So we've got 6 games coming up, 2 of them on Friday night, so we'll start there. We'll start with Man City against Brighton. City did the double over Brighton last season, including a 1-0 win at home. That was back in September, with Bunny Shaw getting the only goal of the game. The only time Brighton have actually ever beaten City was in this fixture at Man City 2 seasons ago. Ligue 1 Min with the winner in the 81st minute. And interestingly, there's actually only 5 players that started that game that are still at these 2 clubs. So Chiara Keating, Yui Hasegawa, Mary Fowler, Bunny Shaw, and then Sophie Bagley, who I don't think is going to be playing this weekend for Brighton. Izzy, it was obviously a, decent weekend for Brighton to start the season. Probably not great to not beat Villa, but not terrible. Man City didn't get the result they wanted, obviously losing away at Chelsea. But yeah, how do we think this game's going to go at the weekend?
Yes, so I actually think this could be a good one for City because we might see Grace Clinton. For starters, she'll have had a week to settle in with the team, and I think Grace Clinton is probably what this team is missing as well. They need someone feeding those balls to Bunny Shaw, to Miedemar. I think Lauren Hemp as well, hopefully, will get a chance to shine in this game. So I'm quietly confident that this could be actually a decent win for City. And yeah, give them a bit of a chance to kind of start a bit of momentum into the league after last week's loss.
Yeah, I think if City, it doesn't matter who they play really. I think if City go 2 weeks without getting any points on the board, it would be a bit of a nightmare for them. Laura, how about you? Because obviously Brighton looked pretty defensively good at the weekend against Villa. City looked pretty distraught down their left-hand side with Chelsea attacking. Obviously, Brighton don't have Ellie Carpenter to attack down, but do you think Brighton might cause City some problems?
Yeah, definitely. I'm on a real downer about City at the moment after sitting through Stamford Bridge. I think it's because I sit amongst Chelsea fans as someone who isn't a Chelsea fan, and you kind of want City to do something, and challenge. And it didn't ever feel like they were going to win that game. I thought the service to Miedemar and Bunny Shaw was really poor. So I think it's really interesting what Izzy said about Clinton. I think that will definitely make a difference. I think another thing that was interesting about the Chelsea game and whether this will be a consistent thing or not was that Hemp played the majority of the match on the right. And often when she's been on the right under Serena Wiegman or at City before, it's been in a system where both wingers swap quite consistently throughout the game. It's something that Arsenal do, where you see kind of Kelly and Smith interchanging. We saw that against London City Lionesses, and we saw it last season with whoever was on the pitch. But Hemp actually stayed on the right, which I thought, yeah, interesting. And especially given that maybe I'd say if Carpenter had a weakness from the Chelsea game, it would be her defensive capacity. Why wouldn't you want kind of Lauren Hemp and her pace attacking that? Maybe it was because Carpenter is fast, so they didn't feel they could kind of make the most out of Hemp's strengths there. But Sandy Baltimore isn't exactly slow. So, yeah, I'm quite interested to see how they kind of field that and whether they can get more service to Miedemar and Shaw, because I don't think that 9 and 10 pairing really worked against Chelsea. So, yeah, whether they can make that click a little bit better. But I think there'll certainly be problems, and I think they'll also be really interesting. At the end of that Chelsea game, there was some injury issues, so I'm definitely kind of going to be listening out to the press conferences. Lily Murphy went off kind of saying, I think she'd broken her arm. That looked quite serious, so hopefully she's okay, but potentially expecting her to be out. And Alex Greenwood also went straight off down the tunnel with hamstring, it looked like, I think. towards the end of the match. And if Alex Greenwood's out, that's definitely a real blow. And I think Brighton could definitely cause problems.
Yeah, at the time of recording, I don't think there's been any sort of any statements in the club about those injuries and what they're like, but neither of them looks like they're going to be back for this weekend. So it'd be interesting to see who comes in, because we talk a lot about the top sides like your Arsenal and your Chelsea having really big squads, really deep squads. City's isn't as deep as some of the others, but they should be able to still sort of deputise. You've got Imran Beni that came on at the weekend. Laila Wahhabi did as well. So those sort of players might fill in down the left-hand side. But yeah, certainly interesting to see how they'll line up with not a full side for Man City going into the start of the season. The other game on Friday night is West Ham at home to Arsenal. This one at the Chigwell Construction Stadium. These two teams obviously met in pre-season, Arsenal running out 2-0 victors. And the last time these two teams met in a competitive game was that 4-3 at the Emirates, which was one of, at least for the neutral, one of the games of the season. West Ham's last win against Arsenal was actually in this fixture in the 23-24 season, winning 2-1. Alessia Russo opened the scoring before Vivasay, and then Howard Sissoko, what a throwback, won the game for West Ham in the second half. This is one that I think... Well, Izzy, I'll come to you first, actually, because you obviously watched both of these teams play at the weekend. You watched West Ham away at Spurs, you watched Arsenal at home to London City Lionesses, so you're probably best placed to say how you think this game's going to go. I think Arsenal looked great, but I didn't see too much of West Ham.
Yeah, I think this one we can probably fairly easily call for Arsenal. I won't rule West Ham out. I think if they can kind of sort out the problems they had against Spurs, sort of attacking, they can definitely pose a threat. I mean, we know that Asai and Martinez, and if I don't know if Fionn Morgan will start or just come on, but she's definitely got speed and pace down the wing. So I don't see any reason why they couldn't sort of challenge the Arsenal defence. But yeah, I to be honest, I think Arsenal will outshine them in this one because they just have such a squad of attackers that a West Ham defence just can't stand up to.
Yeah, the depth at Arsenal is just something that not many teams can face. Laura, how about you? Because West Ham, they were so good attacking last season, they haven't quite been firing so far.
Yeah, I think they've always got that potential to pose a bit of a problem, and we've seen them maybe not too consistently, but if Arsenal had a bogey team, West Ham would certainly be up there with a shout. And going to Arsenal are now used to playing on the Emirates pitch and used to those bigger stadiums. So you go into Chigwell Construction Stadium. Obviously, they're also fairly used to Meadow Park. And I think maybe also interesting that these two teams did play each other in a pre-season friendly. I didn't actually get a chance to watch that one back, but Freedom Mornham kind of coming on late to rescue things for Arsenal. So obviously they were able to frustrate them. Very different circumstances. You can't read too much into a pre-season friendly, but they've met recently, so I think that'll be interesting. I think from an Arsenal perspective, it will be like, how is Renee potentially going to line it up in terms of, we saw her make the call not to start Karakini Cross. We saw her to make the call to start Katie Reid. Will those continue? Because she said that it was kind of Cooney Cross's season to make the six her own, and this is against kind of better known opposition, so you maybe don't need that experience of Kim and Mariana in the 6 and the 8. So yeah, I think that's potentially what's going to be really interesting about this fixture. And will Lotta get back in the starting lineup, or even Laia Kadina, is she in with the shout? I kind of doubt it on that front, but I think that's the kind of questions that I want answering from an Arsenal perspective. But I do think what we saw maybe from the London City Lionesses game was that in games like where West Ham had been an Arsenal bogey team before, it had kind of been those matches where you want them to kick through the gears like Chelsea do, and we're not having our best display, but we're going to grind out a win. And I think we saw a kind of characteristic of that when Arsenal went 1-0 down at London City Lionesses. I don't think they had their best first half ever, but by the end of that first half, they were 2-1 up. And it was that grit that maybe Arsenal have lacked in the past, and maybe comes from that we are winners, we've just won the Champions League, and hopefully that will kind of avert anything that West Ham might throw at them. But yeah, I think it will be interesting. But yeah, again, I hopefully expect an Arsenal win.
Yeah, I think having 3 Arsenal fans on this podcast, you probably weren't going to get much else than an Arsenal win. 3 from me as well. I think Arsenal are basically just going to have too much for them in all areas of the pitch. It's interesting you say about Arsenal coming back against LCL at the weekend. I can't remember which one it was. One of the previews, it might even been the Arsenal one. I spoke about, I think the difference between Arsenal and Chelsea in previous years has been their ceiling is the same, but Arsenal's floor is just lower than Chelsea's. Chelsea, like you say, grind out a result no matter how well they play. Arsenal will have an off day and lose to Brighton and Villa and people like that, teams like that, like they did last season, and West Ham almost. So yeah, if they can perform like they did against LCL and come back, and maybe winning the Champions League is all they needed to. I say all they needed as if it's just a little thing. To just win the Champions League, then you'll be fine. Let's move on to a team that hasn't done that. Aston Villa against Chelsea. Although they are the team with the slightly higher floor, I think this one is midday on Sunday at Villa Park. Chelsea have actually won all 14 times that these two teams have met, including a 1-0 victory in both games last season. So not thrashing Aston Villa, but certainly keeping a clean sheet at least. I remember the game, I think it was the first game of last season, it might have been at Villa, that Chelsea won 1-0, but it was such a close game, and I didn't think Sonia Bonpastor's Chelsea were going to go unbeaten throughout the season at that point. But no, Villa are very much a team that struggle against Chelsea. They haven't scored against Chelsea in their last 6 meetings. Rachel Daly was the last Villa player to score against Chelsea, and that was back in October 2022, so nearly 3 years ago now. Laura, I'll come to you in this one first, as we were just sort of talking about the difference in Arsenal and Chelsea. How do you think Chelsea are going to fare in this one? Because Villa obviously kept a clean sheet at the weekend against a Brighton team that took 18 shots, so defensively they're still pretty good, but do you think they can keep Chelsea out?
It's so hard to look past Chelsea in any fixture. I think, yeah, I don't think the fixture you mentioned of the first one of the season, and Sabrina Zangelo came really close to scoring. It's quite a funny match. And then I think the away fixture for Chelsea at Villa Park, they needed an own goal. It was, I think I remember watching it. It was like someone crossed it, and it was a really unfortunate own goal, and Villa had done really well. I think it was that match. So, yeah, clearly Villa have been able to kind of deal with Chelsea in the past. I don't think either of those matches kind of Chelsea blew them away or anything, but like we've just spoken about, Chelsea do just seem to grind out those results, and I don't know if Villa have quite enough at this point in the season to deal with that. And I also just think Chelsea just get stronger and stronger and stronger. You just look at that side and you think they could win the league with like a first 11 and a second 11. Like, they're that good and they're that strong in every position. Naomi Girma wasn't even in the squad when they beat Manchester City, and it's just laughable. Alyssa Thompson, they've just signed her, and Sam Kerr's on the bench unused. Whether we'll see her kind of come back, or whether it be another year where she just has to stay on the bench. The recovery's been that slow. But yeah, I think it's just so hard to look past them with the depth that they have and the quality. You know, if the people they put out at the start of the match, Captain Hermano, Aggie Weaver-Jones on against City, don't have the answers, then you can bring on the likes of, you know, Joanna Rytting-Kaneryd, Sjöka Nusken. These were all like substitutions they're making, and you just sit there and you have to like kind of laugh at how good they are. So yeah, I think it'll be a really tough ask for Aston Villa, but will be interesting.
I think I wouldn't put it past a team like Aston Villa to keep Chelsea scored down. It's just that I do think Chelsea will get at least a goal, and I can't see Villa scoring in this game, unfortunately. You know, like I've just mentioned, they've done 6 games in a row against Chelsea without scoring, and this could well be 7 because, yeah, like you mentioned, Chelsea have just got such a ridiculous pool of talent. It's not just a broad pool; it's the talent, the level of the talent within that pool that, yeah, like you say, they could probably get 2 starting 11s out that would win the league. Let's move on to, well, 2 teams, the only 2 teams, in fact, not the only 2 teams, to start again, the only match between 2 teams that lost on the opening day. This one's Leicester against Liverpool at the King Power. This fixture last season was on the opening day. It was a 1-1. And these 2 teams have actually never produced a 0-0. So we can probably guess that at least one of these teams is going to score, and at least one of these teams is going to first or finally get points on the board this season. Izzy, who are you backing in this game? Because we spoke in the Game Week 1 review, which came out yesterday, that both of these teams were quite disappointing, and I personally think they're probably going to end up 11th and 12th. So I think this might be a 6-pointer.
I think this is going to be a quite fun game. I'm going to call it. I think we'll see goals. I think Liverpool, I think Laura said on the last podcast, made some interesting signings on deadline day. And obviously, I think Olsen came on at the end of the game last weekend, but there's Szymczak from Poland. Obviously, Shimazu came as well to Liverpool, and I think I'm hoping to kind of see that sort of play out on the pitch. I know we've spoken about Kirsty McLean before as well. There are people there that can kind of bring out a really interesting game, and maybe, Leicester need a bit more time to kind of feel their way into things. So I genuinely could not call this one, but I do think, like you say, I don't think it's going to be a 0-0 at all. I think we could see a few goals. I would expect Liverpool to win, but at this stage, who knows?
Yeah, I'm a bit like that. I would expect Liverpool to win, but I wouldn't be surprised if either team won this 1-0 or 2-1. It's really one that could go either way. Laura, are you any more decisive than us?
I think if I was Liverpool, I'd be glad I was... I don't know, actually. I'm not decided, so no, basically. But I think in some ways I'd be happy I was playing this fixture early, because Leicester are clearly very unsettled at the moment and they've not found any rhythm at all. New coach, but in a really weird scenario. So if you're going to play them at any point, probably now's your best chance. And it also doesn't feel quite as 6-pointery when you can't be a 6-pointer when it's the second game of the season. But I agree with you that it maybe will be kind of come the end of the season. But then equally, maybe Liverpool will look a lot stronger when their new signings have settled in, and they'd maybe want that therefore to come later in the season. So yeah, undecided as well, but it should be an interesting one.
We are all firmly on the fence for that one. Let's move on to a game that I can at least say I won't be on the fence for, which is LCL hosting Man United. This one also Sunday at midday. These two teams have only ever met twice before. That was back in the 18-19 championship season. Man United, I think that was Man United's inaugural season. Man United won those games 8-0 at home and 5-0 away, so a 13-0 aggregate score. Former captain Katie Zellem will face Man United for the first time since she left, which I think is quite an interesting dynamic. She was, I think, in her time at Manchester United, one of, especially in that last season, she was probably one of the best players in the league, never mind just one of the best players at the club. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see, A, if she starts, because who knows who's going to start for LCL at the moment, but B, if London City Lionesses might be able to take something from last weekend and bring that into this Man United game. I think London City Lionesses, I thought at the start of the season, they won't say this themselves, but internally they might think that they're almost writing off these first two games, Arsenal away and then Man United at home, and then after that they've had some time to gel. Maybe they can start picking up some points. But yeah, so for me, I think Man United have been such good form, like obviously in Europe leading into the WSL season. They beat Leicester 4-0 at the weekend. I think this is going to be a relatively comfortable Manchester United win. Wouldn't be surprised to see London City Lionesses get a goal, but yeah, Man United winning this by 2 or 3 goals for me. Laura, how about you?
I think I'm a little bit more undecided, but it might be more hopefulness from a fan perspective. I think the fact that United have Champions League football midweek on either side with the Bran playoff for the Champions League phase as it is now, maybe makes it a little bit more interesting, just in the sense that they've obviously had a few injury issues at the start of the season, whether those players are returning, and if they are, then maybe that makes it a little bit more in United's favour, but I'm not really sure what the timescales are. I think Rolfo's returning pretty soon. I think they've got a couple coming back, which obviously kind of goes in their favour, but they will maybe have to rotate a little bit more, which is not something that United have always been like too familiar with, because They've only qualified in terms of even the knockouts for this round. Sorry, the qualifying stage once before. So yeah, it'll be interesting. I just don't think London City looked kind of cohesive enough on Saturday to kind of put together a hugely improved performance within 1 week. Like, I don't think that gelling kind of happens. But, I'd say, what can they do with a home crowd behind them? But I don't know how sizable their home crowds particularly are. I'm quite excited on a personal level this weekend because I'm going to do the Chigwell Construction Stadium for the first time ever, which is bad that I've never been there before. And also Hayes Lane, Bromley. I think I'm going to try and make it to this fixture. I'm a big footballogy user, so that's quite an exciting weekend for me. But yeah, I think I'm with you that it will be a United win, but maybe not quite as dominant just because tired legs from the midweek fixture. Yeah,
I think that makes sense. Izzy, how about you?
Yeah, I think I'm more on your side, Sam. I think United will dominate this. I've been calling London City Lionesses the Noah's Ark of teams because I think everyone kind of comes with a teammate and they're all sort of in twos. And so they haven't quite got their sort of thing together. I'm sure it will come, but yeah, I think for this one, it could be... I wouldn't put it past them to get a goal, but yeah, I think this is easily a United win.
Well, that'll be Man United's probably even further at the top of the table. But there will be two other teams that will be trying to fight them for it. And do you know what? If you said which one of these matches, if you said before the start of the season, which one of these matches in game week 2 will be the only one between two teams that won on the opening weekend, I probably wouldn't have guessed Everton against Spurs. But here we are. This one's the last game of the weekend, 2:30 at Goodison Park. Obviously, Everton playing Goodison Park permanently now, their first home game of the season. Both teams have scored in the last 5 WSL meetings between these two sides, so hopefully we'll see a few more goals this weekend. And it's worth noting as well that Everton have never lost at home to Spurs in any competition. So they've got a home record to fight for after, well, they fought nobly at the weekend for their away record at Liverpool, and now they've got to fight for their home record against Spurs. I think this one's going to be kind of in line with previous meetings, I guess. I think Spurs, by the sound of it, were good enough at the weekend. I think they've looked good as well in what I've seen from pre-season. So I wouldn't be surprised to see them get on the score sheet, especially if they can get another penalty again. Beth England does score goals. We know that. And they are decent from set pieces. We saw that last season as well. And obviously they've kept most of the same squad. But I just think this Everton side, I tipped them at the start of the season to be best of the rest, and I'm sticking with that after the first weekend. I thought they looked fantastic. This weekend just gone. So yeah, I'm probably going to go for like a 3-1 Everton win. I think this could be a really fun game to watch, especially for the neutral. But yeah, I'd be interested to see what you two think. Izzy, how about you? I'll come to you first.
I'm going to go against my gut and say 2-1 Everton. I think they're going to do that classic thing of dipping slightly in expectations. I say dipping as if winning 2-1 is a dip, but compared to last weekend, maybe it is.
Why is that against your gut?
Because my gut wants to say like 4-0 Everton.
Oh.
But I think I'm gonna go 2-1.
I thought you were going to say something positive about Spurs for a minute. Of course not. Why would it be? Laura, how about you? How do you think this game is going to go?
Yeah, again, I feel like I'm maybe being a bit skewed by my own biases. I think it will be a really interesting one. I'm still really interested to see, because I think Martin Ho is so much better a manager than Robert Villaham. I think he's a really good coach. So I am expecting like an improved Spurs this season, but whether that's kind of fully embedded itself yet, I'm not sure. And I'm not sure whether they've got the kind of quality of player, whereas I said it on the last pod, but I think Everton's investment has been, I'm really, really impressed with. I'm really impressed with their transfer window. So I think two exciting sides for very different reasons. In the one has a new manager, what can he do tactically, and the other one consistency managerially, but really exciting on the pitch and those changes that have been made. I'm kind of interested from a fantasy perspective of whether Vignola is going to be like the Kiko Seike of this year, of early hat trick, and then kind of doesn't necessarily sustain that scoring form. But I fear she might be a little bit better in terms of returns. So yeah, interesting to see whether that kind of continues. I'm finding it really hard to call. I think if Everton win, then Spurs don't score, and I think it'd be like maybe 2-0.
Interesting. So bucking that trend of both teams scoring in the last 5 meetings, but I guess it's got to end at some point. You mentioned fantasy in there. Let's move on to that because we've covered all 6 games briefly then. AOL Fantasy, obviously we've got Decoding the WSL League. Go and join it if you haven't already. Use the code Stats and Facts. Get your teams in for game week 2 before it starts. Deadline is on Friday evening. Let's go captain picks first. My captain pick this weekend is going to be Elizabeth Turland again. I think she has obviously looked so great in Europe. 4 goals in 2 games. She got a goal and an assist at the weekend, and I don't think London City Lionesses looks defensively that cohesive from what I saw of the game. Turland's obviously in great form. LCL aren't. I just think it's a pretty easy choice. The only other person that I would sort of consider or would have considered putting in if they were in my team, because I don't have them at the moment, although I haven't quite decided what transfers I'm going to make yet. But the only other person I'd consider putting in as captain would be Bunny Shaw, obviously at home to Brighton. I know Brighton kept a clean sheet at the weekend, but Bunny Shaw is someone that pretty much gets a goal every 90 minutes. So if she's playing the full game or even most of it, she's a good bet to score a goal. So yeah, I'm going to go for Elizabeth Turland this week as my captain. Laura, I'll come to you first. Who's your captain pick?
I'm undecided because I'm not sure about my transfers, but currently on my the thing I do where I kind of set it before the weekend's over to make sure that I've not got a complete mess of a team for the next weekend in case I forget, but probably won't. I've got Chloe Kelly and Turland vice, but I was very kind of close between them, so I can see myself kind of going towards a Turland. I think I might see what happens midweek with SK Bran and United's fixtures there. But yeah, Chloe Kelly scored in the West Ham Arsenal fixture, obviously last year, and I can see Arsenal racking up a few there, and her either being in the goals and assists. So potentially that, but I can also, I'm very on the fence at the moment.
Yeah, I think that's a fair shout. I also do the exact same thing. I set it normally at the end of the weekend, and then hopefully I remember on a Friday lunchtime normally to actually set my team for the weekend. And it needs to be Friday lunchtime this time because the deadline's at 6:30 on Friday. Izzy, I've got a feeling you might be on a similar road to me with captaining Turland.
Yes, I think that is my safe choice. If I was going to take a risk, I might go Liv Smith. I think we could see her on the score sheet this weekend. And compared to other Arsenal players, I think she's probably a lower captaincy rate. So in terms of differentials, she could be a good idea. But knowing me, I will probably play it safe and captain Turland because I'm doing well for week 1 and I don't want to jeopardize that. I'm not at a point of desperation yet to take risks. But I also think Chloe Kelly's a good
there's
shout.
no need to take risks if you don't have to.
So yeah.
I think that's a sensible way of going about it. I don't think I think I've been bitten before, especially in FPL as well, of trying to be too smart with getting the right people in at the right time and taking risks that I don't need to do. So, someone scores and gets an assist for you, keep it going. That's going to be mine. What about other picks generally for game week 2? Is there anyone, Izzy, I'll come to you first. Is there anyone in particular this week that you think you might be transferring into your team if you haven't done your transfers already anyway?
Well, I have Pacheco, who is obviously one of my top picks for next week. I just think, I think she's great and I think she'll rack up points. I think I'm going to be bringing Carpenter into my team. Potentially, if not Carpenter, then maybe Aggie Beaver Jones, I think, could also be a pretty decent pick. Honestly, I think fantasy-wise, I might just target the top 4 teams as best I can this week. I don't think I'm going to be chasing, like, the Spurs-Everton match that much. I think, obviously, there's been a lot of hype about Vignola. She's gone up 5% in the last, however many days, 3, I think, as we record, since the game, which is about 2,000 people around and about. So I suspect although she might not continue the Kiko Seika trend, I'm wary. I was burned by Kiko Seika last year, so I'm wary of bringing her into the team. I think Pacheco's a lot more reliable for Everton, at least for now, because I've seen her know what she can do in previous seasons. So, yeah, I think I'm just going to try and bank on some Arsenal and Chelsea players and within my budget and hope for the best.
Yeah, I think that's a sensible choice. I was just having a look through at some of the other fixtures as well, because I know that at the moment I've got 3 United players and 3 Arsenal players, and I want to change that because not this game week, but next game week, Man United and Arsenal play each other. And then 2 weeks after that, game week 5, it's City against Arsenal and then United against Chelsea at the same time. So if I'm going to do what I usually do, which is what sounds like you're doing as well, which is flooding my team with the players on the top 4 teams, I'm going to be really hedging my bets on game week 5. I really don't know who I'm going to transfer in and out at the moment. I think that the team that I've got at the moment is pretty good. I think there's areas I can improve because I've got 2.5 million in the bank. I've got obviously 2 free transfers to use. I'm considering taking out someone like Spence or Mamiki to just try and get someone a bit better in, or maybe even taking out Palova might be a good shout this week, with Arsenal being away at Manchester United the following week. But Turnan's staying as my captain, Russo is staying in as my vice, so they're my sort of 2 expensive picks. And I'm definitely keeping Micah Hamano. She's, I believe, a visionary this week. She's gone up in percentage since the last game week started, so she won't be a visionary next week, but I already had her in my team, so I might as well keep her for another week just in case Bon Pastor Bingo doesn't get me and she does get another start. But yeah, I really don't know who I'm going to take out and put in at the moment. I think, Laura, like you said earlier, that looking at the fixtures midweek and seeing how Man United do against Brown might be part of what I do when it comes to Friday. I think the more I'm thinking about it, I think Palova is probably going to come out of my team. But Graf might come out of my team as well, because I don't know what's going on there. She seemed to play every friendly in pre-season and then didn't play it because of an internal club issue. We don't know what's going on. Probably shouldn't speculate. So I'll move on swiftly to just Laura. Have you got any ideas of who you're going to transfer in and out this week?
I got really stung in the first week of not having started. It was fine because it was my bench. I did fine. I got 63 points, so I wasn't terrible. My starters did pretty well, but I had Germa, who I thought was going to be involved and wasn't. I had Matilda Vinberg, who similarly had started all kind of pre-season and looked pretty good. Again, that was a bit of a gamble, and she was on my bench, so it's fine. But she wasn't even in the squad. So yeah, I'm kind of do I kind of deal with my fringes or do I just leave them on the bench? They're kind of my quandaries at the moment. In terms of my actual squad, yeah, I've got Beth England, who I don't know if I want to keep for ages, but she's on penalties, and obviously that was fine last week, so maybe I keep that for Everton. But yeah, I think for me it's going to be kind of doing a bit of a tidy up and listening to the press conferences, because I didn't do that last week and that was clearly a bit of a problem. But yeah, I don't know. I might try and get Germa out and Ellie Carpenter in.
Yeah, I think that's a sensible option. I've got Carpenter in from last week as well, and I would thoroughly recommend it. I think with Lucy Bronze being out, Carpenter's one of the few Chelsea players that you can actually expect is going to start. And obviously, she's hit the ground running. She's doing well. So, I'm not going to keep many Chelsea players in my squad this season, partly because of price, but partly because Bombastor Bingo bit me a lot last season. I don't want that again. But yeah, not a bad start to this season. I'm at 159 in the world. I just had a look, which I am pretty happy with. If I can remain there or anywhere close to it, if I remain in triple figures, I'll be happy by the end of the season. That's my target. But yeah, that's about it for us today, I guess. That is our little preview of game week 2. Obviously, the 6 games coming up this weekend, and then our aerial fantasy picks as well. If you haven't already, go and join the Decoding the WSL League. Use the code Stats and Facts on the aerial fantasy app. And if you're not already doing so as well, do go and follow or subscribe to Decoding the WSL wherever you get your podcasts, and follow at Decoding the WSL on Instagram. Check out the YouTube channel as well. All of our podcasts are there on YouTube. You can go and see our beautiful faces rather than just listening to our voices as well. We're also, I'll mention now, on Patreon. You can become a friend of the pod for £3 a month. The money we receive all goes towards producing the podcasts, and in future there'll be extra benefits that you'll get as well for being a friend of the pod. Those are in the pipeline to come. But that is it for now. Thank you, Izzy, and thank you, Laura, for joining me today. Thank you, listener, for being here as well, so we're not just talking to ourselves. And we'll see you at the next one.